Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're taking a deep dive into ESG culture. It's incredible how ESG has gone from a niche idea in corporate social responsibility to something much bigger.
It really is remarkable how, in just a short time, it's become a global movement.
And a lot of that has to do with investor interest, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it. Over $30 trillion globally is invested in ESG-oriented funds.
Wow, 30 trillion. That's a powerful statement. But what really fascinates me is this idea of ESG culture. It goes deeper than just having policies, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's about the company's core, their DNA. We're talking values, beliefs, and behaviors that truly make up the organization.
So it's not just about ticking boxes. It's about a real shift in how a company operates and what it stands for.
Exactly. And the fascinating thing is that a strong ESG culture doesn't just benefit the world. It can actually have a positive impact on the company's bottom line as well.
That's what I wanted to ask about next. How does that actually play out in a real-world scenario?
Well, let's take employee satisfaction as an example. Kineo, a company that specializes in learning and development, found that companies with highly satisfied employees have 14% higher ESG scores on average.
So basically, happy employees lead to a happier planet and happier investors.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like that. But how do companies actually make these changes happen? It seems like such a huge task.
It can be a big undertaking. PwC outlines 4 key dimensions for implementing ESG cultural change.
4 dimensions.
Yeah, the first is governance and top-down steering. Basically, the leadership needs to be truly committed to this, not just giving it lip service.
They need to walk the talk, as they say.
Exactly, but it can't just be a top-down approach.
It needs buy-in from everyone.
Exactly. PwC also talks about the importance of bottom-up pressure. Employees, especially younger generations, are super passionate about ESG issues, and they want to work for companies that share their values.
Yeah, that resonates. I've seen that firsthand. People want their work to mean something.
Absolutely, and that passion can drive real change within these organizations. But there's a tricky part to all of this. PwC refers to it as the sticky middle.
The sticky middle. What's that?
It's middle management who sometimes resist the changes coming from both the top and the bottom.
So it's kind of like a cultural tug of war.
In a way, yes. And navigating that tension is super important for successfully integrating ESG into a company's culture. There's this great example in the PwC report about a North American utility company.
So what happened there?
Well, their CEO and COO were completely committed to shifting from fossil fuels to renewable energy.
That's a big shift.
It is. And they didn't just send out memos, they came up with a powerful and simple slogan that got the whole organization on board. It even attracted investors who believed in their vision.
That's a great example of leadership in action. But what about the day-to-day things, the actions and behaviors that create an ESG culture?
That's the third dimension PwC highlights. Values and behaviors. It's about putting those high-level principles into tangible actions in everyday work life.
So what does that look like in practice? Can you give me some specifics?
Sure, think about fostering diversity and inclusion, promoting transparency, investing in employee well-being, encouraging sustainable practices in the workplace. All of these contribute to a strong ESG culture.
So it's about creating an environment where people feel valued and respected, and where they feel empowered to make a positive difference.
Exactly. And that's where Kineo's 6-step guide is really useful. They break down how to enhance ESG performance through culture.
I'm looking at their guide now, and it's pretty comprehensive. They cover things like transparency, diversity, learning and development, employee well-being, sustainability initiatives, ethical leadership. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, it covers a lot of ground. Kineo recognizes that a positive company culture plays a big role in driving positive ESG outcomes.
So we've got leadership commitment, employee engagement, a focus on values and behaviors. What's the 4th dimension?
It's all about measurement. Key performance indicators, or KPIs as they're called.
Right. You need to be able to track progress.
Exactly. KPIs help quantify a company's performance on different ESG factors.
Like what kind of things are we talking about?
Well, it depends on the company's specific goals. But you might track things like the percentage of renewable energy used, employee satisfaction scores, or the number of diversity and inclusion initiatives implemented.
It makes sense to tailor the KPIs to the company's specific goals.
Absolutely. But it's not enough just to have these KPIs for show. They need to be integrated into the company's performance management system and used to guide decision-making.
And being transparent about the KPIs is crucial.
Definitely. Transparency and accountability go hand in hand when it comes to building trust.
For sure. Now, there's this other concept I wanted to ask about, people and planet before profits.
Right. That's an interesting one.
I've heard that phrase being used a lot, but what does it actually mean in the real world?
Well, it's a challenge to the traditional business model that prioritizes profits above all else.
Okay, I'm listening.
It suggests that businesses should prioritize their employees, their communities, and the environment first, even if it means potentially sacrificing some short-term profits.
It's a pretty radical idea, but I can see how it could be inspiring too.
It is inspiring. And what's interesting is that many experts actually believe that this approach can lead to greater long-term profitability and success for companies.
Really? How does that work? It seems a little counterintuitive.
Well, think about it. When you prioritize employee well-being, you generally see higher morale, productivity, and better talent retention.
That makes sense. And when you prioritize the environment.
You can reduce costs, mitigate risks, and even appeal to environmentally conscious consumers, which is a growing market.
So it's not about sacrificing profits altogether. It's about redefining what success means.
Yeah, exactly. It's about taking a more holistic and sustainable approach to business.
It's recognizing that businesses are a part of a larger ecosystem, and their long-term success is tied to the health of that ecosystem.
Absolutely. That's a powerful way to put it.
It seems like this shift towards a more socially and environmentally responsible way of doing business is really gaining momentum. I'm curious, what are some of the challenges companies face when trying to make these changes?
One of the biggest challenges is the risk of greenwashing.
Greenwashing, right? I've heard of that.
Right. What does it mean exactly?
It's when companies make superficial changes or use misleading marketing just to appear more sustainable than they actually are.
So it's all about authenticity and genuine commitment, not just PR and marketing.
Exactly. But the question is, how can companies make sure their efforts are genuine and not just empty gestures? What kind of questions should we be asking?
That's a great question, and it's something that requires a deeper dive. But first and foremost, it's about integration. ESG goals can't be a separate initiative. They need to be woven into the company's overall business strategy.
Right. It needs to be aligned with the company's core values and operations.
Absolutely. And another crucial aspect is engagement. Companies need to be talking to their stakeholders, their employees, customers, investors, community members, to really understand their perspectives and concerns.
So listening and collaboration are key.
Definitely. You know, a lot of these principles are just good business practice in general.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got integration and engagement. What else is there?
The third key ingredient is transparency. Companies need to be open about their ESG performance, both the good and the bad.
So being open about their progress, challenges, and even setbacks.
Yeah, exactly. Publishing reports, disclosing data, and being open to feedback, all of that helps build trust and accountability.
Transparency is key in any relationship, especially in business. So we've got integration, stakeholder engagement, and transparency. Anything else?
Lastly, accountability. Companies need to have clear metrics to track progress and be open to external audits and assessments. Basically, being willing to be held accountable for their actions.
So, to sum it up, it sounds like authenticity, stakeholder engagement, transparency, and accountability are crucial for ensuring that ESG efforts are genuine and truly make a difference.
You got it.
It's all very insightful. But how does this play out in the future of work? How does ESG impact how we work and the kind of workplaces we'll have?
That's where things get really interesting. But I think we need a moment to gather our thoughts. ESG and the future of work are intricately connected, and it's a topic that deserves a dedicated exploration.
Agreed. Let's delve into that right after a quick break. Okay, so we've established that ESG is more than just checking boxes. It's a fundamental shift in how businesses operate and the values they uphold. But how does this translate to the future of work? What does an ESG-driven workplace look like?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's one that has huge implications for individuals, businesses, and society as a whole.
Okay, so let's unpack it. What are some of the key trends that we're seeing?
Well, one of the most significant shifts is the rise of remote work. The pandemic forced companies to adopt remote work models, and now, even as things are returning to normal, employees are demanding more flexibility in how and where they work.
Yeah, it makes sense. People got a taste of the work-life balance that remote work can offer, and they don't want to give that up.
Exactly. And the shift to remote work has major implications for ESG.
How so?
Well, for instance, companies have to think about how to create a sustainable and inclusive remote work culture.
Right, because not everyone has the same access to resources and opportunities when working remotely.
Exactly. How do you ensure that all employees, regardless of where they're located, have that equal access? And how do you maintain a sense of community and connection when everyone is physically dispersed?
Those are important questions. And it's not just about the logistics either. It's about fostering a culture that supports employee well-being no matter where they're working from.
Exactly. And that brings us to another key trend. The focus on employee well-being as a core component of ESG companies are realizing that employee mental and physical health is essential for both individual and organizational success.
It's about creating a work environment where people feel valued and supported and empowered to bring their best selves to work.
Precisely. That includes addressing issues like burnout and stress and work-life balance. Companies are investing in mental health resources, flexible work arrangements, and wellness programs, things like that.
It definitely makes sense from an ethical standpoint. But what about the business case for this? Why are companies suddenly so focused on employee well-being?
Aside from the ethical reasons, there's a growing body of evidence that suggests that investing in employee well-being just makes good business sense.
Oh, really? Like, how so?
Studies have shown that companies with strong employee well-being programs actually end up having lower healthcare costs, less absenteeism, and higher productivity.
So it's a win-win. Happy employees, healthy bottom line. But how do we ensure that these efforts are genuine and not just a way for companies to seem more attractive to potential employees?
That's a really important question, and it comes back to those principles we talked about earlier: transparency, accountability, and stakeholder engagement. Companies need to be open about their efforts, track their progress, and be willing to be held accountable by their employees.
Walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Exactly. Now, another big trend shaping the future of work is the rapid advancement of artificial intelligence, or AI, as it's better known.
Right, AI is everywhere these days. How does that fit into the ESG conversation?
Well, AI has the potential to be a really powerful tool for driving positive ESG outcomes.
Okay, I'm interested. How so?
For example, AI can be used to optimize energy consumption, reduce waste, improve supply chain transparency, and even identify and mitigate risks.
So AI can actually help companies become more efficient and sustainable.
Exactly. But there are also ethical considerations that need to be carefully addressed.
Ethical considerations with AI. Can you elaborate on that?
Of course. As AI gets more sophisticated, we need to ensure it's being developed and used in a way that aligns with our values.
What kind of ethical concerns are we talking about specifically?
One of the biggest concerns is bias. AI systems are trained on huge amounts of data, and if that data reflects existing biases, then the AI system will just perpetuate those biases.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've seen examples of AI systems showing biased behavior already, like racism and sexism. How can we prevent that from happening, particularly in the context of ESG?
It's about being very careful about the data used to train the AI systems
Right.
and ensuring that it's representative and inclusive. And it's also about building in mechanisms for human oversight and accountability.
So not letting AI just run wild, but using it as a tool to make human decision-making better.
Exactly, and having open and honest conversations about the potential benefits and risks of AI and working together to ensure that AI is used ethically and responsibly.
It sounds complex. Are there any companies out there already doing a good job of integrating AI into their ESG efforts?
Absolutely. There are companies using AI to analyze sentiment and employee feedback to understand and address well-being concerns better. And some are using AI to adapt their sustainability initiatives based on real-time data.
So they're using AI to listen, learn, and respond to ESG challenges in a more dynamic and effective way.
Exactly. And as AI keeps evolving, we can expect even more innovative applications in the ESG space.
Exciting and a little daunting at the same time.
Yeah, I get that. It's crucial to remember that AI is just a tool. It's up to us as humans to use it in a way that creates a more just, equitable, and sustainable future.
That's a great point. Technology is only as good as the intentions behind it. So as we look ahead to this future of work shaped by ESG, AI, and remote work, what are some key takeaways for our listeners? What should people be thinking about as they navigate their careers and workplaces?
That is a fantastic question and one that deserves careful thought. You know, the future of work is changing so rapidly, and ESG is at the center of that transformation.
Wow, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive. It's really amazing to see how ESG has evolved and how it's shaping the very fabric of how companies work and the values they embrace.
Absolutely. And looking ahead, it's clear that the future of work itself is being profoundly influenced by these ESG principles.
So for our listeners who are taking all of this in, what are the key things they should remember? What should they be thinking about as they navigate their careers and workplaces?
I think the first and most important takeaway is that ESG is not some niche concept anymore.
Right. It's becoming more and more mainstream.
Exactly. And that means it's impacting all of us, regardless of our specific industry or job title.
So this isn't just for CEOs and sustainability teams to worry about.
Definitely not. Whether you're an accountant, a teacher, a software engineer, or a marketer, ESG is going to shape your career in some way.
So how can individuals, regular employees, how can they stay ahead of the curve when it comes to ESG?
Well, one way is to just educate yourself about what ESG is all about, the principles and the trends.
Right. There are lots of resources available online and through various organizations.
Exactly. Another important takeaway is that ESG is not just about compliance. It's about creating a future that's better for everyone.
A more sustainable, more equitable future.
Exactly. So it's about finding a job that's more than just a paycheck. It's about making a positive impact.
Finding work that aligns with your values and gives you a sense of purpose.
Exactly. And that might mean actively searching for companies that have strong ESG commitments or advocating for change within your current company.
Speaking up and making your voice heard.
Now, as we talked about, the future of work will be shaped by things like remote work and AI. And these trends bring both opportunities and challenges when we look at them from an ESG perspective.
So what are some things we should keep in mind as we navigate this new world of work?
Well, with remote work, it's crucial to create a virtual workplace that is sustainable and inclusive. That means making sure all employees have the same access to opportunities and resources, no matter where they are.
So it's about leveling the playing field, even if that playing field is virtual.
Exactly. It's also about building a strong culture of trust and communication and encouraging collaboration in a remote setting.
Right. It takes conscious effort from both employers and employees to make that work. So it's more than just working from home. It's a new way of working together.
And with AI, the key thing to remember is that it's a powerful tool that can be used for good or bad. It's up to us to guide its development and make sure it's used ethically.
We talked about the dangers of bias in AI. How can we minimize those risks?
Well, we need to be careful about the data used to train AI systems, ensuring it's diverse and representative, and we need to have human oversight and accountability built into the systems.
So it's not about replacing human judgment with algorithms, but using AI to enhance our decision-making capabilities.
Exactly. We need to be talking openly about the ethical implications of AI, working together to create guidelines and safeguards.
That brings us back to the idea of people and planet before profits. Do you think that kind of shift in thinking can actually happen on a large scale?
I think it's already happening. We're seeing more companies embrace this idea, and not just because it's the right thing to do.
Right, but also because it makes good business sense in the long run.
Exactly. Companies are realizing that taking care of their employees, their communities, and the environment is good for their bottom line. And as this continues, I think we'll see a real shift away from the old shareholder-centric model to a stakeholder-centric one.
So companies are recognizing they have a responsibility to all their stakeholders, not just their investors, but their employees, customers, and the community as a whole.
You got it. And this shift, I believe, has the potential to create a future that is more just, equitable, and sustainable for all of us.
That's a hopeful vision of the future.
It is, and it's something we can all contribute to. Every step we take, even if it seems small, can make a difference.
That's a great point. It feels like we've given our listeners a lot to think about today. So as we wrap up this episode on ESG culture and the future of work, any final thoughts you'd like to leave them with?
I'd say the future of work is unfolding right now, and we all have a role to play in shaping it for the better. Stay curious, stay informed, and get involved. Remember, the decisions we make today will have a ripple effect on the world of tomorrow.
What a powerful message. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into ESG culture and the future of work. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.